I know I'm probably going to get a lot of groans and complaints when I say this sermon's going to be a little shorter than usual.
Oh, no.
But just because it's kind of to the point. We're here in the first week of Advent. Where's the shepherd? Where's the star? Where are the fuzzy animals and the gifts of frankincense and myrrh? Where's the hope? This is the Hope Sunday. And I would say there's three things in this passage that we can either read this like I say all the time. We can read this at a surface level, and frankly it sounds a little scary, doesn't it? I mean, you know, the stars are going to fall, and the moon won't give its light, and I mean, it sounds kind of scary. But if we put it in context, and we read this from who Mark is, and who Mark is saying Jesus is, it's really actually pretty hopeful. The first thing is this passage comes directly on the heels of Jesus saying the end of the world is going to look like this. And it's going to be kingdom against kingdom, nation warring against nation. Children will turn on their parents and have them put to death. Parents will turn on their children and have them put to death. People on the roof, don't go down and grab your cloak. Run, because it's going to be absolutely apocalyptically horrible. And what Jesus is saying is, after that awful, awful, awful stuff happens, the Son of Man is going to come. And it's going to be so much more overpowering than anything human beings can do terrible to one another. The goodness of my coming is going to be so overwhelming, it's going to be like the stars are melting. And the heavens, and I will come down and gather my children together. So I wanted to make that point. And then also, notice that Jesus says, if you want to know when the end of the world is coming, look at the fig tree. And he gives us lessons on how to know the end of the world is coming. And then right after that, he takes it back, doesn't he? He says, but no one knows when the end of the world is coming. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, only the Father. The thing that strikes me is we have so many people that are trying to figure out from Daniel and Revelation, whole books and denominational religions are trying to figure out when is the Christ returning. And it's, what was it, 2000 was Y2K, I guess. But then we've got all these different predictions that have come. And Jesus says, stop obsessing about this. Even I don't know. So if you want to waste your time trying to figure out through mathematical formulas in Revelation when Christ is coming, knock yourself out. But Jesus says there's really no point. I kind of wonder too, if you did figure it out, what would you do? What would you do? I mean, I guess you might do things differently, or I mean, I'm not really sure. Martin Luther said he would plant an apple tree if he found out that the world was going to end tomorrow. But really, what would you do? And then this business about staying awake. This is a little scary too, isn't it? So a master goes and leaves his servants in charge. So the master is God, we're the servants. Woe be unto you if you fall asleep. Don't be caught napping. Well, we can't stay awake all the time. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the bridesmaids or the virgins, whatever you want to, however you want to refer to. Even the good ones fell asleep. So this is what I think we need to figure out this morning. We have one more, Kate. Who is Mark? We don't really know who wrote the Gospel of Mark. Mark is as good a name as any. Some people think he was John Mark in Acts, a guy whose mom had this place where everybody would gather and she would cook for them and that kind of thing. There's the scene in Mark, you probably watched The Passion of the Christ, where the young man goes running naked away in the Garden of Gethsemane. People think Mark may have inserted himself into the book as that character. But Mark is as good a name as any, and Mark is a man who's in a hurry. If you read Mark, I love Mark. But immediately is a word that Mark uses all the time. 3 times more than Matthew and Luke, 6 times more than John. Jesus got into the boat and immediately it reached the other shore. Jesus called the 2 disciples and immediately they dropped their nets and followed him. Jesus healed a girl and immediately she jumped up. Jesus runs around scattering miracles like pearls all over everyone and everything in Palestine. Mark tells us who Jesus is, not what Jesus said. But then Jesus takes the time to sit down and explain something here. So Mark is talking about all these rushing around. Everything is in fast motion. And I titled this, A People in a Hurry. The people back then were in a hurry. They never knew when a knock was going to come at the door and they'd be dragged to the Colosseum and eaten by lions. By this time, Nero was in power. One of Nero's favorite things to do to Christians was to have cocktail parties and dinner parties and tie a Christian up on a pole and cover them with wax and burn them to death to be used for light for the dinner. These were a scared people and a people that were in a hurry. We're kind of in a hurry too, aren't we? I know I am. I watched this movie the other day called Krampus that I'd never heard of. Has anyone watched this movie about the legend of Krampus? Krampus is this half goat, half man who's St. Nick's alter ego who comes to punish the bad children. And in the beginning of the movie, they show like a Walmart scene. And there's people beating each other to death to try to get the television. We're in a rush too, just like they were back then. But then Mark does something interesting. And he says that Jesus tells us something interesting, at least to me. This is what this means to me. Jesus says, if you want to wake up, if you want to figure out who I am and when I'm coming and what this all means, look at the fig tree. Well, if you look at a fig tree to see when it's going to ripen and shoot forth fruit and that kind of thing, it's not something very fast, is it? It takes time. It takes focus. Mark gives us all kind of details, too, that the other gospel writers don't. Can you see Jesus now? For the other gospel writers, Jesus is in a boat. For Mark, Jesus is in the stern of the boat with his head on a cushion. For the other gospel writers, Jesus is feeding 5,000 on the plain. For Mark, the grass is green. Jesus doesn't just watch a woman drop 2 coins in the treasury. Mark tells us that Jesus is sitting opposite the treasury. Jesus is telling us that it takes time for us to observe these things. Wake up, I think. What Jesus is calling us to do in this Advent season is like a Zen master with a pupil. A Zen master with a pupil who is starting to daydream will get 1 inch from that student's face and clap his hands right in front of the student and say, wake up. Wake up from your thinking of the future. Wake up of thinking about the past. Wake up from your daydream. As we go into this Advent season, I don't know about you. Now, I got to cheat this morning because I knew what I was going to preach about. So I noticed all the little details that maybe I don't notice. But did you notice that the grass had frost on it so that it didn't look green? It almost looked like, to me, like a little ocean as I was driving. I smelled, coming from Caldwell, what's this, the beet plant. And what does that smell like sometimes? I think it smells like gypsum board and peanut butter cookies. It's what it smells like to me. I noticed that as I was coming in at the Blue Barn, there's a building a little farther down the stretch on the right-hand side as you're coming towards Parma. I never noticed the orange and mustard-colored gas pump before. And it just reminded me of memories of my mother and things from my past. These little tiny details is what I think Jesus is calling us to do, is to wake up from our dream, wake up from our daydream, and do the work of paying attention. Everyone says Advent is about waiting. I agree, Advent is about waiting. But as I've heard sermon after sermon throughout my life, I walked out as confused as when I walked in, because it's like, what do you mean wait? This happens every year. I don't get it. What am I supposed to do? I think what this means, Jesus says stay awake. It doesn't say stay afraid. It doesn't say be afraid if you fall asleep and the master returns. It's be awake to the experiences of your life, the sights and the smells and the sounds, the details, that are a part of your life. Like the angel that the women went to the tomb found. They didn't just find an angel. They found a young man dressed in a white robe, and he was sitting, not on the left, but on the right-hand side. As I wrap this up, these details of our lives as we spend this next month together journeying through Advent can be a spiritual time of growth for all of us. As we stop and slow down and smell and hear and taste, we see the light on a loved one's face, a son or a daughter or a spouse, a parent, and it hits it just right. We hear someone's voice and it reminds us of something otherworldly, maybe from our past, that connects us to something with each other and with the divine. Stay awake, wait, but pay attention.